Yo, my people, hope everyone's well, hope everyone's blessed and enjoying Final Fantasy VII Rebirth as much as myself. I just wanted to give a quick rundown of 10 tips and tricks that I've noticed whilst playing the game that the game doesn't really tell you, but I feel like it's quite vital towards, having a more fluid as well as more enjoyable experience playing the game. So it's just literally a short rundown of 10 tips that I've got. So yeah, let's get straight into it. 10th on the list, we have camera height. So this is something that I just played around with and I feel like kind of does help. I didn't really use it in Remake, but I just feel like on this game it is quite important, and that's the camera distance or camera height. I've put it on 2. You can put it on 3 and have it more zoomed out, but I've just personally decided to stick with 2 just because on 1 you can see a lot of the fight, but I feel like there's sometimes when, if you're using Cloud or whoever you're using, you can't really see what's going on the other side where like with all the other combatants. So I feel like it's just best to keep it on 2. You can try 3 and experiment with 3, but I definitely prefer 2. So yeah, in terms of camera settings, these are like the main ones. These are the main settings I have. I'm pretty sure that all of these are default besides the distance. So yeah, nice and quick. Coming in at number 9, we have some gameplay settings that I feel like are quite important, I'd say. So obviously I've got my combat style to active, but it doesn't really matter if you're using classic, it also works the same. And that's the combo targeting. So when you load the game for the first time, and if you don't change the setting, it will be fixed by default, but I've changed it to 3. And basically what that does is it allows you to, say you're using Cloud and you're attacking, it allows you to come out of that attack and hit someone else straight away, whereas if you're on fixed, it will kind of keep you locked onto the player and it will make you finish that input. So let's say you're tapping square and you're attacking with Cloud, the game won't really let you switch and hit someone else at the same time. You'd have to kind of finish the string and then move over to the next player and hit them. So I've changed it to 3, which just makes it more fluid and you can be a bit more agile when you're fighting multiple enemies at the same time, which is something that happens quite a lot. So I think that one is quite a no-brainer in my personal opinion. Coming in at number 8, these are the graphics. So now this is down to preference again, but I am a performance mode, not even a whole, I'm a performance mode, that's my thing. So any game that I play, if there's an option to play in performance mode, I will play in performance mode. But the only thing is, obviously I noticed it in the demo and I'm sure a lot of other people did, you see that the game is a lot more blurry. Like it's a bit more blurry. In this instance it doesn't look too bad, and it never looks too bad to the point where it's unbearable. But at the same time, saying that, I feel like there are certain moments where when you're in when you're in places that have so much going on the screen, it can be a bit too much. So personally, like I've started to use graphics mode, which is something, this is probably the first game I've ever used graphics mode on, and my god, it is amazing. Like if you obviously initially it will seem really rough and quite static, because obviously you're playing on a locked 30 frames per second, but the only difference with this is that the fidelity and the graphics of everything happening is so much more crisp, and your eyes will automatically adjust to the lower frames, and then it won't even be a problem anymore. Like I've been playing this game literally the whole time on graphics mode, and as you can see, it looks way better than having it on performance mode. So that's just my personal recommendation. So obviously in certain areas the game can get a bit darker, so I tend to put the brightness on 3 or 4, but 3 seems just right for me, and like the monitor that I use and stuff like that. Before we get to another 7th one, just please be sure to drop a like and a subscribe. It will really help me out a lot, as Final Fantasy VII is actually my passion, and this game is this franchise, I can't even explain how much influence it has on everything that I do content wise. So it'd really be helpful if you guys can just show some love before we move on. I do have a little honorable mention setting that I think is quite helpful, and that's audio. So this would be like a little in between interlude. I would recommend turning the music down, just because there was one specific scene at the beginning of the game where we was in the grasslands and we had to help that quote-unquote merc, and there was a point where the audio mixing was really bad, to the point where the music was on top of her voice, the dialogue. So I would recommend dropping it to 7, maybe even 6, but I've got it on 7 and it's been fine ever since. But just so that, you know, the music doesn't overpower any of the vocals and any of the conversations that's happening. So yeah, that's just a little honorable mention. Cool. So coming in at number 7 is to do with our Chocobo. So as you you can probably gather whilst playing the game, you know, the Chocobo can sense, you know, things that are dug up in the ground. So one thing that I recommend, sometimes when you use the scent button, it will like, so let's say for example if I use it, let me just give you an example. So let's say I use it here, right? It won't show you the direction, like it won't give you that line straight away, but you see how there's a question mark with a little arrow? If you look in that direction, you'll see that it will start pointing the direction of the treasure, and that honestly saves me a lot of time of having to stop and start and stop and start again. So it will simply make it just much easier for you to now locate the treasure and then, you know, dig it out. Obviously we have to use it probably more than once. In my case it was quite far away, and then yeah, oh, won't be missed. Now we got it. So yeah, that's something that I think it's a smaller tip compared to the other ones that we've got on the list, but I still think it's something to mention. Cool. Coming in at number 6 is to do with the Chocobo stop. So with me personally, I like convenience. So when I am, you know, lifting up these, you know, these signs, like I want it to be quick. But on this game, when you do it, it just seems like it takes an awful long time. But I found a little quick fix that I don't think a lot of people know. But it's minor for me. It's minor, but for me it's convenient. If you now go to the Chocobo stop with your Chocobo and you lift it, look how much quicker it is. Done. You don't have to waste no time. You don't have to, you know, it's a quick process, and I can't lie, it's worth mentioning for me because of the fact that I find it so jarring. Cool. So coming at number 5, we have shortcuts. As you're in battle, you probably, you know, use the abilities more than you would, you probably use the menu more than you use the shortcuts. But I just want to quickly emphasize how important the shortcuts feature is, because you can obviously add things like, you know, heals, or whether it's counter abilities where you want to kind of get those attacks off quick so that you don't have to, so that you can quickly retaliate. For example, with Red 13's Sentinel stance, you don't want to always go to the menu to turn that on. So this is just an important tip that I find is quite helpful, especially as you get more advanced with the combat. This is something that I think is quite important and makes it easier for you to do quick DPS, or even just counter an opponent quickly, or get off a stagger quite quick using like Focus Thrust, for example. Cool. So coming in at number 4, we have utilizing Red 13's Vengeance mode. You've probably been spamming square, just hoping for the best, hoping that it fills up faster. But one thing I would recommend is using his Sentinel stance, which is kind of linked to the previous tip, where you can have that assigned to a shortcut, so you can get that command of quicker and counter the enemies back, which in turn fills up your Vengeance mode, so that you can utilize that, because Vengeance mode is what really makes Red 13 shine out and just be even more stronger with DPS. Coming in at number 3, we have using assess materia. This, I can't stress how important it is. Honestly guys, assess everything. Honestly, you'll be able to see so much more detail on what enemies can do, what they're vulnerable to, what they're immune against. And I think it's very important to know how to stagger an enemy and get that DPS out. So assessing is really important. Once you max it out, you can obviously assess all enemies in one command. And the good thing about assessing this game is that the assess stays on that enemy once you've assessed them once. So you never have to keep assessing the same enemy that you already have assessed previously before. It's really, really important, so you know what kind of weaknesses they have, so you can just absolutely ball out. Coming in at number 2, we have utilizing Tifa's Unbridled Strength. This move is very slept on, and I feel like even in Remake I didn't utilize it enough because it stacks. So once you use Unbridled Strength once, you get the Omnistrike ability, which is just a single hit that does a lot of damage. And obviously once you do use Unbridled Strength, obviously her basic attack is stronger. She's a lot more quicker and nimble on her feet, so when you're dodging she's a lot more faster. Tifa really becomes that girl when you use Unbridled Strength. But once you've used it the first time, if you put it on a second time, you now get another move called Rise and Fall, which once you use that by pressing triangle, you can chain that with Omnistrike to do a lot of damage, which you will see right now. You just see her completely balling out once she uses it. As you can see here, look, as you can see, look, completely balling out. Basic attack is completely different, and then boom, the enemy stands no chance once you use that, and I think it's something that makes her so overpowered. Tifa's already very strong as it is. You can even do air tech with her and air combos with her, and I've done it before when I was fighting against Alina and Rude. So it's something that I definitely would recommend using, because look, you can just absolutely destroy enemies, as you can see here. So it's something that I definitely recommend, and definitely worthy being on the later line of the list. Last and not least, certainly not least, is utilizing different enemies. So obviously, we now know how to use the assess material. We now know how to utilize shortcuts, and I feel like now we can kind of put everything together and really utilize different elements in the game. Because in this game, there are also additional abilities that are in your folio, which is something that if you guys want me to do a little walkthrough on, I can. But it's quite straightforward. It's just a simple skill tree. There's additional abilities that also on those skill trees that are elements, and I feel like there's a lot of prowess with elements in this game compared to Remake, where you don't just have spells, you also have abilities that you can use that are elemental and doesn't cost any MP. Once again, you're always going to fight enemies with different weaknesses, different strengths, different resistances. So I highly recommend in your party having a good variety of different spells, whether it's fire, whether it's fire, whether it's thunder, ice, whether it's bio, comet, whatever it may be. An enemy will have a weakness to it, and I feel like, especially for the elements, it's the most important thing, and I can't stress enough. In this game, luckily with Chadley, you can have two elements mixed together, so like fire and ice, or thunder and wind and stuff like that. So I feel like that's really, really important to use. But just putting all that knowledge you have together, assessing the enemy, knowing what their weaknesses are, and just really knowing that in all bases you have different elements covered in your in your range of attacks that you can offer. I can't stress this one enough. Like, there are enemies that are weak to fire, or there are some enemies that are immune to fire or completely resistant to fire. So it's always important to have a good mix up of different elements. So that concludes my little tips and tricks video. I do have a lot more different tips under my sleeve, and just different things that I would like to explain to some of you guys that the game doesn't really tell you much. I mean, it does give you a little bit of like reading that you can do on it, but I feel like it's sometimes important to have certain features, kind of handheld through. For example, like my folio, what's it called? The folio page with all this different skill trees, as well as just even the material system as I know it quite well, having played the original OG game as well as the remake and now this. It's not very a hard concept to grasp, but it's always important to kind of if you do struggle with it, have someone explain. So if that's something that you guys want to see, let me know. I probably will do it anyway, so that will definitely be something. But on that note, touching on Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, do subscribe to my Twitch, which is Strife V2, the same name as this channel. Like, I'm literally doing a walkthrough right now, currently at Junon, so definitely lock in. It's fun, it's good vibes, it's funny vibes. We're seeing Cloud Riz two girls. It's lit. It's honestly good vibes. So if you do like watching streams and stuff, definitely jump on that stream. I've been streaming it more or less every single day for like 6, 7, 8 hours. So yeah, definitely jump in, catch a vibe, say hello, and hopefully you'll drop a follow and stay up to date with my streams, because hey, listen, this playthrough is going to be a long playthrough. I plan to play, maybe try platinum it. I also plan to do it on hard mode straight after I finish the game, which is a bit crazy, but something that I definitely want to do. So if that's something you want to see, please do leave a like, comment, subscribe, and then obviously follow me on Twitch as well. Aside from that, guys, it's been your boy Strife. I'll catch you guys in a bit.